Yeah.
I don't think it is.
I don't think so.
We call to order the special town council meeting for this Tuesday, October the 8th. Item number 2 is public comment. Is there anyone here wishing to make a public comment? Please come forward and give name and address, and you'll have 2.5 minutes, please. Anyone for public comment? Going once. All right. Public comment is closed. As we move to item 3, executive session, after some consultations today, I would like to make a motion from the chair that we defer both of these considerations for the Recreation Advisory Commission and the ATAX Advisory Committee due to the fact that already voter registration deadlines have been changed, and our notice period of this occurred during that same season. And I think it would only be fair for the same reason that we send this to the proper date that precedes our next council meeting, whatever that date would be. So that's a motion from the chair. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We are in discussion. Any discussion? All right.
I don't know that I'm working either. I could talk loud enough, I guess.
They all do.
Mine's working.
What? Can you repeat the motion on the floor? I'm sorry.
Sure. The motion is that we defer both of these that are listed for executive session for the Recreation Advisory Commission and the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee for the same reasons that voter registration deadlines were moved, because the notice period and application for this period occurred during a previous storm. I forget which one.
Helene.
Huh?
Helene.
Helene.
This one's Helene. Thank you.
No,
This one's
the
Milton.
new one is Milton.
Right. during Helene. And after consulting with several council members and our attorney, the chair makes that motion. And it's been seconded.
Okay. I think we just keep delaying things, but that's okay. I'm a no vote on this.
Mayor, for clarification, does that include continuous or re-advertisement for the
Yes.
positions?
That's the whole point.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, so this will be on the next council meeting?
Yes, and she puts out a deadline that gives her time to assemble those and disseminate them to everybody. I'm not sure what that date is, but it would be the way you normally do it for the next council meeting. However, the clerk does those. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion?
Hold on, I'm sorry.
Yes,
I'll
sir.
I'll be donating Kick the Can Council. If anybody would like a T-shirt, I'll be happy to buy it for everybody. So that's my comment. Thank you.
All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
All right, by 7-1, the motion carries. So those will be deferred, which negates the reason for an executive session. So item number 5 on our agenda is to adjourn. We'll be back at 6 for our monthly meeting. This meeting is adjourned. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this Tuesday, October the 8th, Mount Pleasant Town Council meeting. Good to see everybody here this evening. And we will get started with a prayer led by Chaplain Rob Dewey. I'm going to call for a moment of silence to precede that. You break that when you're ready to pray. And then the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mayor Pro Tem Councilmember Whitley. Please stand. Let's observe a moment of silence for those who have been lost in the recent storm, and I'm sure we'll have a prayer about the one that's looming.
Lord, we do come to you with heavy hearts and praying hearts because we care about the folks in Florida and also those that have been through the tragedy in the upstate and North Carolina and other places. We know that you can raise mountains, and that we just pray that those responders that are there and that are heading there, you'll be with them and protect them. Ask your special blessing upon this meeting, and God bless those that have been called to serve in the leadership position for which they're serving. And we just ask you to bless this time as we move forward to make our community even a better community. In your holy and blessed name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3 is approval of the agenda.
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Motion, do we have?
Second.
This is shorting out. All right. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say by.
Aye.
Aye. By saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. Item 4, we have public hearings, awards, and presentations on my draft. Are there any this evening?
I don't have any, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Item 5 is approval of the minutes from the September 10th, 2024 Town Council meeting and the August 2024 financial statement.
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just, my phone's still not working. Mine's not, so
Okay.
it's not like I don't want to say anything.
Right.
It's just,
Yeah, something must be shorting out. So, or maybe somebody's foot is on the wire.
Yeah, temporarily use these. It will definitely still pick up on
Okay.
the recording. But
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Item 6 is public comment. When your name is called, please come forward to the lectern, name and address in 2.5 minutes, please.
First speaker is Denise Fugo.
Hello, Town Council. Denise Fugo, 515 Mountain Laurel Lane in Goose Creek. I am Executive Director of Housing for All Mount Pleasant, and I am here specifically to ask for your support as you continue to do the planning so that we can move forward with affordable apartments at Town Center. There are many case studies across the United States on this type of project. This is not the first time a wealthy community has been approached with taking a shopping mall and converting it to including some apartments. And John knows, I'm going to recommend that you guys look up Beechwood, which is one of the wealthiest communities on the east side of Cleveland, and Westlake, which is one of the wealthiest communities on the west side of Cleveland, with 2 shopping malls built at the same time. The people in the east side voted against any housing on that development. And today, due to Amazon and due to the crisis in retail and in food service, that mall is not doing as well as the one on the west side of town, which started with apartments above the shops. After the apartments were put in, major employers moved in, American Greetings. Then, after the apartments, they decided to build townhomes. The townhomes were such a success. They decided to build single-family homes. And then the fourth phase was they started building $1 million homes, which we're now getting in Mount Pleasant. Both communities, 97% white, incomes in both communities over $200,000 a year, very similar to Mount Pleasant. We are desperate for affordable housing. You know what the death knell is in Mount Pleasant? Because I get the calls. When a young woman who has 2 or 3 children gets divorced from her husband and loses her housing and can't stay in Mount Pleasant. So don't worry about the police. Don't worry about the fire. Don't worry about your other staff. I want you to think about those women, okay, that were born in Mount Pleasant, that were raised in Mount Pleasant, that went to school in Mount Pleasant, and want to raise their children here in Mount Pleasant. And I get the call with them crying because they need to leave. So the situation out in the world is getting more desperate, not better. We welcome the millionaires, but the millionaires need people to take care of their kids and to clean their houses and to cook their meals. So please help us. Work with the developer for Town Center. There's plenty of examples, and I will help you any way I can to help the residents of Mount Pleasant stay in the community they love. Thank you.
Morgan Bentavania.
Good evening, Town Council members. My name is Morgan Benavegna. Address is 320 Broad Street, Charleston, South Carolina. I understand the Wilson Track PD amendment is on the agenda for first reading tonight. The applicant is requesting a deferral, which you hopefully received our letter last week outlining why. After what we feel was a productive meeting held on this sole topic on September 17th, we understand we have some work to do to adjust the PD amendment to Town Council's liking. These changes include reducing our height request from 75 feet across the entire project to 55 feet in select locations, maintaining 35 feet elsewhere. We've adjusted our density requests while offering to privately build 25% of units for attainable housing. We are taking Planning Commission's minimum 10% open space requirement and have proposed non-contiguous pocket parks throughout the project, enhancing the recreational aspect and desire for family entertainment. There has been some discussion about what is possible, about the possible need to resubmit and start this process over. We do not feel this is necessary because town staff has advised that the applicant is able to make all necessary adjustments and changes to the amendment after first reading. These adjustments will include an updated impact study based on decreased density and an updated amendment including the adjustments I just highlighted. There was also a desire from Planning Committee to hold a public hearing, which town staff has advised can occur at second reading. A public hearing will allow us all to educate the public on the updated proposal and highlight how we've significantly reduced our requests from the original submittal, which the public had previously seen. We have now had 10 meetings, including today's, to get us to this point. The purpose of all these meetings was to gather feedback and craft this proposal together. Since we now have the necessary feedback and direction on what needs to change, we ask that you defer this agenda item so we can use the next month to update our requests and materials for your vote at the November Town Council meeting. Thank you all for working together with us and getting to this point, and we look forward to continuing to work together. Thank you.
Pamela Marsh.
Good evening, Mayor and Town Council. I'm Pamela Marsh. I live on the Isle of Palms. My mailing address is 8 Tabby Lane. I'm here as a friend of the Captain Richard Cliff family, and I'm here to speak about the naming of the dog park beneath the Ravenel Bridge. Captain Richard Cliff was born and raised in Mount Pleasant. He graduated from Wando High School, where he was on the wrestling team. After he graduated college, he followed in the footsteps of his dad to join the Army. Mr. Cliff is a Vietnam veteran. Captain Cliff trained to become a Green Beret team leader. On a third tour of duty, he was killed in Afghanistan in 2008. He had already been deployed twice to Iraq. Richie was only 29 years old when he was killed in action. He left behind a wife and a 4-week-old son. Richie loved pets, particularly dogs. The town of Mount Pleasant has a wonderful opportunity to memorialize a native son who made the ultimate sacrifice I support this new dog park being named after Captain Richard Cliff. Thank you.
Bill Marsh. Okay. Thank you, sir. Adam King.
Good evening. Thanks for having us. My name is Adam King, 948 Lansing Drive. I was born and raised here with Captain Cliff. We graduated from kindergarten in the old village together, elementary school at James B. Edwards, and Wando High School together. I'm here to speak on behalf of our entire friend group and the group of people that came together to celebrate Richie's life and service. We held a fundraiser for about 10 years, for exactly 10 years, for Richie and the family, raised over $250,000 in his name, and donated that to the Special Operations Warrior Foundation, which is where Richie wanted any money raised in his name donated. I'm here to support the dog park and waterfront park being named for Captain Cliff. It'd be an honor to bridge the old Mount Pleasant that I grew up in with Richie with the new Mount Pleasant that we all live and adore today. Thank you.
Richard Cliff.
Mayor Haney, members of the town council, my name's Rich Cliff, and I'm proud father of Captain Richard G. Cliff Jr., who, as you know, died in Afghanistan serving with the 7th Special Forces Group in 2008. I'm sorry my wife couldn't be here tonight. Julie is on a trip. She really wanted to be here, but this trip's been planned for a long time. And we are I can't begin to tell you how gratified we are and how much we appreciate the fact that you're considering naming the dog park after Richie. He, as you've heard, grew up in Mount Pleasant, went to James B. Edwards Lang Middle School and Wando High, where he was captain of the wrestling team and was a role model for so many young men coming along, and also was a good student, and his teachers loved him, and he went on to join the Army, and really it was something that he always wanted to do. The park would be, it being named after him would be a wonderful tribute to him, because he loved his country. He loved Mount Pleasant. He loved his family. He loved his friends, many of whom live here now. He also loved his dogs, Ralph and Rex, and they missed him terribly, believe me. More importantly, though, I think the park would be a real source of inspiration for future generations as the youngsters come along and go to the park with their pets, being able to see his name and know that they're going to the same schools he did and they play on the same playing fields that he did. It'll be something that I think, will really remember. Again, thank you so much for your consideration.
Larry Roberts.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, first of all, I want to applaud the previous speakers that offered to provide a memory to one of our fallen heroes. I think that's a great
Get
thing.
your name and address, please.
Pardon?
Name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Larry Roberts. You probably recognize the name, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I've written you twice,
Yes.
if you remember. Anyway, I applaud the previous speakers. I came here to talk about the flooding problem we had on Royal Avenue. My name is Larry Roberts. My address is 917 Royal Avenue. Mayor sent out the engineers to talk to me about the flooding problem. The answer I got was there's nothing we can do. This is after the major multi-million-dollar project was completed on Royal Avenue. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not. After the project was completed, Mr. Mayor, we had 2 floods. Your engineer said there's nothing we can do about it. However, I sought the supervisor for the contractor that was there. And I asked him what's going on, because we had, across the street from where I live, we have a manhole cover. and water was coming up out of the ground this far. When the flood came in and the heavy rain, the water was like a geyser coming out of the ground. So I asked the supervisor, what's causing that? And what he told me was, please make note of this. I don't know if you're familiar with that project, but supposedly, I was told, I don't know, I'm not an engineer, but anyway, I was told that two-pipe system went down along Rural Avenue, two 48-inch pipes, whether or not you're familiar with that. They have at the end of the street, near the swamp, a gate, supposedly, that opens hydraulically, automatically, I don't know. But anyway, the supervisor told me that the problem we were having was because those gates weren't working. Now, we haven't had a flood since, so maybe that's been fixed, I don't know. But anyway, 2.5 minutes is not a whole lot of time to speak about all the problems I've been having. So I'll write a letter, but I need to know who to address it to. I've written you already, Mr. Mayor, so I sent it to the clerk of the council. Okay, I'll put all my comments down. And to you, sir, good luck on your election coming up. You got my vote. And if you vacate that seat, I might put my name in the hat.
Charles Fletcher.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Town Council members. My name is Charles Fletcher. I'm the Vice President of Real Estate and Construction with Roper St. Francis Healthcare, and we're here to answer any questions you have on agenda item number 3. We have our design and engineering firm here present as well, so look forward to the conversation.
Thanks. Ellen Moore.
Good evening. My name is Ellen Moore. I live at 1469 Gunnison Street in Carolina Park. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members, for this opportunity. I have 2 things to cover with you tonight. The first is we had a very successful North Mount Pleasant Farmers Market this past Saturday at the Bend across from Costco. It was terrific. The engagement, the crowds were great. There were a ton of people there. And while late in the season, there wasn't much product for farmers to bring in, we had about 12.5 or so vendors, and from organic meats and fish and poultries to Sprouts vendors, and other wares and finds. But really, the sense of community was terrific, and I think, it was an amazing proof of concept that really shows the potential for an event like this in North Mount Pleasant. So the community in the area of North Mount Pleasant really appreciates the support of the council, especially Councilman Brownstein and Ike Afano, who really were some of the champions there, as well as some of the staff. It worked out, and it worked out well. I personally was worried about the parking, and Costco really stepped in and allowed us to do the overflow there, and all of the vendors in the Bend were really pleased, so thank you for that. Second, I wanted to comment on the Wilson Tract and the potential for several of the massive proposed building structures in town center, including the multi-unit housing and affordable housing proposed. I attended the recent workshop that y'all held and heard from the shopping center owners and the beach company. And all I can say at this point, based on what I heard and the proposed plan, is please use your leadership to not vote to approve this plan right now. I heard there's a request for a deferral, and I think you should accept that. I think what this does, it strains our community. You heard that it strains our schools that are already overtaxed. It's premature, and I think the businesses that were originally intended to, the issues that were originally addressed with this proposal, these 2 businesses that may go out and leave the mall, the shopping center, have not done so, and really what's happening doesn't really address the whole issue. So I would just ask that pause, take a moment, and reconsider the options. Thank you.
Herb Sass.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members.
everyone else. Great to be here to see everybody. I live at 413 Hobclaw Drive, and I've been a resident of Mount Pleasant since I graduated from the Citadel, proudly. When I got here, Snee Farm was the end of the earth. It no longer is. I'm here to talk about the third transportation sales tax that Charleston County is going to have on the referendum in November. It's very important to us. It's our third half-cent sales tax. It is not a new tax. The first tax will time out. When that first tax times out, this third tax will follow in right behind it. So we'll be able to continue doing Greenbelts, CARTA, and other programs. And I'd like to mention a couple of the programs that we do. Is we do Greenbelts, we do CARTA, we've got bus rapid transit. We do annual allocations, which provide for bike and pedestrian paths. I know we did a sidewalk in Cooper Estates recently. We work on intersection improvements. We've done about 350 to 400 of those in the county all around while the sales tax has been going on. I'd like to point out very successful sales tax it's been. Our first project was Charleston County taxpayers through the half-cent sales tax paid $75 million towards finishing the completion of the Ravenel Bridge. And we're still paying that tax. We have 4 more years to go. We had $3 million payments. We have 4 to go. And then the second program that we completed in Mount Pleasant was Johnny Dodds Boulevard. Johnny Dodds Boulevard, as you know, is an incredible road, great frontage road with landscaping and all kinds of ways on and off, and it keeps the traffic flowing. And y'all do a great job of keeping the lights going so that if you're going the right speed limit, you don't get stopped very often. The third thing, of course, was Highway 17 that Mount Pleasant and the DOT worked on to get out to Wando High School. I'd like to say, where would we be today without those 3 projects, the Ravenel Bridge, Johnny Dodds Boulevard, and the continuation of Highway 17 out to Wando High School. We also participated in half the cost on Billy Swales Boulevard, and right now we have a project underway. We're waiting on approval from the Corps of Engineers for Highway 41. We've been through more public meetings on that particular highway and more neighborhood meetings than any project Charleston County has ever had. And the Corps of Engineers and OCRM has had our permits had our application for over a year. We're waiting to get approval to get started. The longer it takes, the more it's going to cost. As we know, with intersection improvements that y'all and we worked on together at Bessemer Road, which I think is a success.
We hate
so.
But we have to call time, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, you do?
Yes,
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was finished. Okay. Well, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Anybody who has any questions, call me. If you all have any questions, call me. Be glad to answer any questions. There's a lot of misinformation out there.
We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
That's all I have, sir.
Is there anyone for public comment who did not have the opportunity to sign it? All right. There being none, public comment is closed. That's item number 6 on the agenda. We move to item 7, consent agenda. There are no consent agenda items. Section 8, planning, new business, item number 1, please.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm happy to go ahead and present. First, I wanted to
move to deny.
Second.
We have a motion to deny and a second. We are in discussion. If you would like to, please speak on behalf of your committee.
Oh, I'm not speaking on behalf of my committee. I'm speaking on behalf of me. But I think that the original purpose of this ask was to compensate for Belk potentially going under and Regal potentially going under. And when the initial proposal came through, it was an ask for 75 feet of height over the entire property, hundreds of housing, I think 12 units an acre of housing, plus hundreds of thousands of square feet of additional retail and office space across the entire property. The proposal was so out of pocket that my instinct was to deny it outright at that point in time. And what we have had happen over these last 10 meetings is teeny tiny steps towards scaling it back to where it feels to me like they shoot for the stars. They're hoping to land on the moon. I don't want to give them the moon. I want to give them what they need to have a viable property in our town for town center. What happens if Regal goes under? What happens if Belt goes under? And nothing further. Because what they're asking for is pure entitlement. We have no control over it's all concepts. It's all concepts. Everything they showed us at that meeting was caveated with, oh, but this is just a concept. This is just a concept. It could be shifted around. It could be changed. There's no concrete plan. And they're asking for the moon. They started off asking for the stars. Now they're asking for the moon. So in my mind, we can always waive the 1 year waiting period. This proposal has changed so much since the beginning. It's not that we want a public hearing. We have to have a public hearing because it has changed so much from what the initial request was. I say, I'm done. I want them to come back with something realistic. And then I will be willing to consider a proposal at that point. So that's why I made the motion to deny.
Yes, sir. Mr. Microphone.
I don't have.
Yeah. Try
So I can talk
pull
loud.
that one closer. Yeah, but I'm not sure everybody can. There you go.
Mind standing either. Okay. Yes, I like it. Showing off. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, by the way. So, what is the difference between the motion to deny and the motion to defer at this point, Ms. Chairwoman? Just like,
Because
I guess-
they want us to pass first reading and then make a ton of amendments on second. I want a clean plan. I want a clean plan that comes to us with a reasonable ask. We do, not a public hearing that is on concepts of a plan and remaking it through random amendments at second reading that we may or may not get what we want in the end. I mean, this is the PD.
Yes.
The whole purpose of a PD is for there to be clear plans for the property. And right now the ask is astronomical.
I guess I'll make a motion to waive the 1 year waiting period.
So
That was,
Can I make, or if we could make an amendment, or
it was recommended by the planning committee to do that as well. So they recommended denial, but they were also supportive of waiving the 1 year.
I'm happy to amend my motion to do the same.
Just let me ask a point of order. Are
Yes.
we able to do that lacking an application to waive it from?
Yes, sir. And I don't want to obfuscate on this. We've done it several ways in the past. The specific portion of the ordinance says that there needs to be a request and that there needs to be a substantive or material change in circumstance. Mayor, we've been very generous about that. If council wants to continue, in my opinion, I believe it's appropriate. It was discussed at committee, and I do believe, as was discussed in committee, that, of course, material changes have already been made to the application. And I just want to explain why I'm saying that, but I do believe it would be appropriate
So we
to
can't,
include it.
so that would be a motion to amend.
Yes.
I know, I'm happy to amend my
Yeah.
motion.
I'll take
So-
mine away.
And
Is your second good for that amendment?
a timeline? We would extend when they apply for us to, but extend it for how long?
and we're not extending anything.
We're not
We're just waiting to
extending.
1 year.
We're waiving the one.
Okay.
The 1 year waiting period.
But waive the 1 year.
Right. So reapplication or a new application, more correctly, could be prepared and submitted immediately with this, if this were to be successful.
The public hearing was held in April, so technically the April Planning Commission meeting, 2025, that would be the 1 year. So they would be able to reapply before April.
Mr. Chapman, you have not spoken.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, council members, I ended up chairing the meeting where we discussed this extensively. There were parts of the application that have been amended as we had suggested they be changed. One of them happened to be changing and lowering the amount of housing. Second, they agreed to the step backs on how the design would be done. Third, there were percentage of green space that they agreed to do. And finally, the height, which was never acceptable to anybody, has been brought down to 55 feet. What we initially talked about was telling the developer to go back and come back to us with a plan that included those issues that had come up that they brought down from what was asked for. And the idea about denying is to give us a plan that starts with these issues that we, working with them, felt were needed. And they came down on all of those. But there's a lot more that can be done. And I think what our chairperson is suggesting is start with those items and build on those to give us a much better plan. And to defer for 1 month probably is not something that can be that the work that needs to be done can be done to give us a very specific plan, not a general plan, but a very specific plan. And what we suggested is this is a start. These are places we want you to start, and come back to us with not only those items, but a lot more that can be done with those specific points. So I'm going to support my chairperson's amended motion. But what I'm trying to suggest is we've given the developer something to start with, and we need specifics. That's the important part. Specifics that we can review and say yes or no to, like these other 4 items that when we got the initial plan didn't have any of them in there. There are others that we need, but we're not designing this project. The developer is. But we've given the developer specifics to start with. And that's the reason for the motion that came out of the committee.
Mr. Mayor, appreciate it, and appreciate my colleagues' remarks. I will be a no on this denial for the simple fact that I feel that like this plan is moving in the right direction, while not acceptable for a vote at this time. In their letter, they've indicated that they would adhere to the comments that they've received about height, about density, about green space, about maintaining family entertainment on the site. And I just feel it's premature to break off this process right now without seeing that plan. We may very well deny that plan when it comes back, but in my mind, a 1 month waiting period to allow them to formulate a revised plan that takes into account everybody's feedback that's been provided over this 6-month process of it going through planning commission, planning committee, and town council would be time well spent. And so I just don't understand sort of the rash decision to deny at this point when they've indicated that they are amenable to the feedback that they've received. So respect everybody's opinion, but I'll be voting no on the denial.
No, well, I think Ms. Hines spoke.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I guess I needed to amend my second.
You did.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that was on the record that I amend my second.
Did you want the floor?
Maybe in a minute.
Mr. Eichmann?
Well, I think Gary, it doesn't, we got a point. I don't know.
I was just going to say that I agree with Mr. Brownstein's comments.
Jeff, if you can hear me.
Councilman Ritchie has not spoken yet, so
Mic issues here.
he has the floor.
I do. Just for clarification for me, if it is denied, make sure I understand the motion. It's denied, but the 1 year is waived. So even if we deferred it, they could come back next month. But with the denial, with the waiving of the 1 year, they can come back a month, 2 months, 3 months when they're ready to come back, instead of just jumping in a month later for where we would either approve or deny. So this is, I just want to make sure I understood that we're not shutting them down for a full year. We're waiving that so they can come back when they're ready to come back, and it doesn't have to wait. Okay, that's what I want to make sure I understood.
I guess I have a legality question, which would be, we held a public hearing, and when that public hearing is held, what was presented to the public, and then there's been 10 meetings since. How much has changed from what was presented to the public for the public to speak upon to what is being proposed now? And is it, I guess, better at that point to deny while waiving the 1 year so that a public hearing can occur again because the plans have changed so much?
Legal's position, and I believe staff concurs, is that what you have in front of you, first reading, has, and what was advertised in the public hearing that was held at Planning Commission has materially changed. It's a material change. It's not a minor change, and therefore a subsequent public hearing on the next round of changes, and if I understand further, there may even be additional changes, meaning we could have to have more than one public hearing in the future.
So we put ourselves in quite the quandary to only defer it. We are better as a town to protect ourselves and allow the public to give their input due to the drastic changes that have occurred on either end, whether it was our doing or their doing.
Yes.
And deferring it does not force a public hearing.
Well, even if it were deferred, again, there would need to be another public hearing. But again, what you are seeing at first reading is very different than what the public hearing would be about, and there would still need to be multiple amendments. So either way, there's going to need to be a public hearing, but at minimum, that public hearing start over. You'd have a first reading, which would theoretically include all of the elements that council wishes to see, or whatever the applicant wishes to present.
So cleaner is a denial.
Correct, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. That's right.
So I'm going to ask again now that what new deadline would they have if none? They
There
could
would-
just go on.
There would be no deadline. So if it's denied tonight, then it's dead. And if the 1 year waiver is approved, the earliest they could reapply to get on the next planning commission agenda would be they'd have to apply in a couple of weeks to get on the November, and so that would be the absolute earliest that they could make changes, turn around, and reapply to get on the November planning commission for public hearing, and then it would come to you in December and January. That's a very that's a pretty quick turnaround, but
Yeah, we're waiving the deadline, so then I'm just wondering, so what new deadline would they have? Well, they're kind of starting over.
Just the deadlines that are already in place for our board and commission applications.
Oh.
So, and the public hearing difference would be if they start all over, the public hearing would be held at the planning commission, just like it typically is. If it were deferred and the first reading was deferred, the subsequent public hearing would need to be held by this body, town council, either at first reading or final reading. So it's
Okay. I'll say that everything that's been asked for has just been entitlements. We've not seen a specific plan, and I'd be more inclined to approve a plan where I can see exactly what's going to be going on in that space. So,
if no one else wants to be recognized, one of the reasons I got in this whole elected office thing in the first place as a council member was there was a thing, and it really happened I think it was over the Watson track in Dorchester County, where a developer could pull a proposal, walk in, see how many people were in the room, how angry the crowd was, and pull a proposal. That's not happened here. Continental has not done that. I'm not saying that. But 10 public meetings is a lot. And we're reaching the point where I think we're going to get citizen fatigue. Do I need to be there? Is this a public hearing? Do I need to speak on this? What's the newest change? I think we owe it to Continental and to our residents to have something that we're pretty sure is going to pass before we throw it out for another public hearing. And I think we're not there yet. And that's why I'm going to be a vote to deny and to waive the 1 year, because then when they're ready, when we're ready. And one other thing, I have a verbal commitment from the superintendent of Charleston County Schools and the operations director that they will begin the process to get the attendance zone changed to Wando for high school, because Beckham's at capacity. We need to give them a little time to start that and give us some feedback, because I think we all know until we get that, I don't know that there would be any votes to pass the residential portion of that. I think we need to have some headway. It doesn't have to be completed, but we have to have some headway on that before I think we can be that positive. So, anyone else before we vote? I think we'll need a roll call, and it is a yes vote is to deny and to grant the waiver of the 1 year wait. So, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Ritchie.
Aye.
Mr. Ritchie votes yes. Mr. Santos.
No.
Mr. Santos votes no. Ms. Whitley.
Yes.
Ms. Whitley votes yes. Mr. Brownstein.
No.
Mr. Brownstein votes no. Mr. Chapman.
Yes.
Mr. Chapman votes yes. Ms. Hyatt.
Yes.
Ms. Hyatt votes yes. Mr. Icofano.
Yes.
Mr. Icofano votes yes. Mr. Rambo is absent. Mayor Haney.
Yes.
Mayor Haney votes yes. 6-2.
Yes, by a vote of 6-2, the motion carries. All right. This moves us to item 2, which is an annexation of.
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
First-
Item number 3, please. And
Move to approve.
motion to approve. Is there a second? Is there a second? Yeah. All right. Ms. Hyatt, second. All right. Please note, this is only the impact assessment. Mr. Chapman, maybe if you would just speak to this, this is your background and you chaired that meeting.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Roper St. Francis for recognizing the significance of this site for the town. It's on the entryway coming into Mount Pleasant, and it's critical that what will be done here not only is the best way to handle the traffic in and out, but also to give us a beautiful site for people coming into the town. And while we don't have a picture of what the building will look like, the site plan that they've provided us with and that they've worked with our staff with is much, much better than what was originally done for Miller Cadillac. And I want to applaud Roper St. Francis for doing that. And I look forward to seeing what we can come up with on the main building itself. But the landscaping, the access in and out, the placement of the wiring underground is really a great start with the site plan and with the program for allowing vehicles in and out.
Thank you. Mr. Brownson.
Mr. Mayor, I have a few questions about this. One, and I agree with what Mr. Chapman said. This is a huge improvement over what is there today. Did have a question about whether or not they've pursued any sort of pervious parking solutions for part of this. It's a big site with a lot of asphalt. And as you know, we have drainage issues in our town. Is that something that could be incorporated into this project?
So I'm going to give part one answer, and then if it's okay with you, I know that their engineers here and is available to speak about the impervious surface. I can tell you that there is a lot of impervious surface there now. They have agreed to do some of our LID techniques, and we'll continue to develop that as we go through the development review process. They are preserving the 3 large oaks. They're going to have to do buffers and street trees and different things like that. But I know that Mr. Peoples is here and can talk specifically about impervious surface if you would like for him to do that.
Just as long as it's something that we are discussing through the DRT process. I just want to make sure that we're not leaving an opportunity on the table with this site, as well as encouraging them to buy into our LID program. I think that would be fantastic, and this could be a very good showcase project for the town. Another question is the access off of Mathis Ferry. Am I reading it correctly that they're going to be building a turn lane into the site?
So they're going to be, so there's going to be, there's an existing, this is going to be the main entrance right here, and they're going to be required to do northbound right turn lane in and a southbound left turn lane right there. There'll be a right in, right out along the frontage road, and then they're going to have to provide interconnectivity to the Spine Institute. So that is what is proposed as part of the impact assessment. And our transportation engineer, James, who reviewed this, is here, and he can answer more specific questions, but it was reviewed by our transportation department, and these improvements were agreed upon as part of that process.
Great. And what's the height of the building? Do we know that yet?
Well, the height of the building is going to be a little under 65 feet, I believe, but they're allowed to have 65 feet here. Back in 2020, Town Council amended the height all along this area. So I don't think you were on yet, but years ago, I know that the family tried to have a CCRC go in at this spot with an 80-foot height, and Council had concerns about that. So this entire area was lowered, and so this site has 65 feet high. So the zoning is in place. They're not requesting any rezonings. They're not requesting any additional height. They just needed to do the impact assessment because the medical building is going to exceed 40,000 square feet, and it's going to exceed the peak hour trips. So.
And forgive my ignorance on this. Is this going to be a hospital, or is this more of an outpatient type facility?
It's going to be medical office, and it's going to have ambulatory service. So it's going to be 3-story, one medical office. It's going to be pulled up to the frontage road. Parking will be in the rear. So one large building, approximately 68,000 square feet, and 3-story.
Okay, good. And then final question, I think, is one of the, just wanted to make sure that Waterworks had signed off on it, because I'm not an engineer by any stretch of the imagination, but it indicates that the water and sewage usage is equivalent to 4 houses. Mm-hmm. And I was curious if in fact that's true, and it may be. It just seems like a large building.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of hard to wrap your head around that's equivalent to 4 houses.
Yeah. I'm not sure about that specifics, but they did provide their proof of coordination, and Mount Pleasant Water is on our development review team, so they've been involved with this process.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, we have a motion to approve the impact assessment. Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
I just have one question as well. So with the impact assessment, can we go back? Is that...
What do you want to see?
Is there dollar amounts in there? Was there?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There you go.
Because there's 0 taxes coming in from them. Is that correct?
Correct.
0.
Correct.
So we get 1. So we increase our fire protection, correct? On an annual basis. Yeah. And I can appreciate that they're nonprofit, but so we have annual impact cost in the town, but we get 1 fee up front and done on nonprofit businesses, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Just wanted to notate that, I suppose. All right. Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And just to clarify, that does improve. That includes the impact assessment and the conceptual plan, correct? Both? Yeah.
That's what the... Yeah.
Okay.
the agenda items. All right, moving to section 9, committee action items. There are no planning old business items. Item A is accommodation tax advisory committee funding recommendations.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The committee met to make recommendations for 9 funding requests for which the committee received applications. The current balance available is $119,400. Council has received a summary of requests and the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee's recommendation for funding, 8 requests totaling $119,400. If council accepts the committee's recommendation, this will leave a $0 balance. As such, I move that council approves the funding recommendations totaling $119,400 for the Coastal Cyclist Ride the Low Country for $2,000, Charleston Race Week events, Charleston Race Week $20,000, Charleston Wine and Food Festival for $23,000, Cooper River Bridge Run for $23,000, Charleston Restaurant Foundation Low Country Oyster Festival for $8,400, South Carolina Surf Club Charleston Challenge Cup and Charleston Springs Shootout for $15,000, Southeastern Wildlife Expo, the 2025 Southeastern Wildlife Expo for $23,000, USS Yorktown Foundation, USS Yorktown 50th birthday celebration. Congratulations on that for $5,000. And the Ricer Planters Amateur 2025 Rice Planters Amateur Golf Tournament funding was not recommended. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We're in discussion. Yes, ma'am.
I just have a few questions.
Okay.
For Charleston Wine and Food Festival, that's in North Charleston, and isn't it North Charleston?
They actually, so committee, if you want me to answer one.
Because it was there last year.
The ATAC committee did a wonderful job of having a discussion with them, and they have moved 3 they have some minor events over here, but they've moved 3 upon request of ATAC. They've moved 3 major events over here.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Right.
They've moved 3 events over here.
Major events.
The Culinary Village will not be in North Charleston this year.
Okay.
But they did not reveal the location, so I don't have any information on that. But
I think they're working. I mean, I don't know that anybody from recreation or who handles. I'm sorry, their names of
Events.
the events.
They have been working. We've been working very closely with them on their events, and also to kind of get for the events they're going to have this season over here to get our branding and all of that
And
stuff.
due to the parking being open over here, they're doing a major event down at the waterfront park now as well. So they're doing 3 major.
They're going to do
upon
3
request.
events at our waterfront park. Shucked and a couple of other ones that they're slipping my mind, but we're partners in this. We'll be having our tourism logo plastered all over the thing, and we'll be able to kind of promote ourselves through those events as well. But the Culinary Village will not be in North Charleston this year.
Okay, but you feel comfortable that they are doing enough in Mount Pleasant to merit Mount Pleasant ATAC dollars.
For sure. And I mean, in terms of the heads and beds, that, you know, the philosophy behind accommodations taxes, their clients or their visitors, their guests are folks who will probably stay in Mount Pleasant and kind of fit our community profile. So yeah, I think they're doing a lot to promote Mount Pleasant and through all their annual stuff.
And I had the same question on Seawee. I know originally when I first got on council, Seawee did 0 events in Mount Pleasant, and then we worked with them to get the brass sculptures at Waterfront Park. Where do we stand with them with the events in Mount Pleasant this time around?
They're not doing any extensive events the way that Wine and Food has changed, but they definitely are able to show hotel room nights.
So people go to Seawee, but they stay in Mount Pleasant.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to speak to the chairman who's worked with us. I noticed that Rice Planters has not been awarded funding because supposedly they're nonprofit affiliation. The state accommodations tax group does not require that it be a nonprofit group. The key issue is heads and beds. And the Rice Planters Amateur Golf Tournament, I would suggest, maybe other than food and wine and the bridge run, puts a lot of heads and beds, and it's a local event that we have worked with for many years. And only last year did they not get funded, and we worked something out. But it was suggested that they rewrite the requirements for payment or for use of accommodations tax so that it was more in line with the state's regulations, which is not the case right now. And so, while I'm going to vote for what has come out of the committee, I would very much like to see a way between now and next June that the regulations for the ATAC committee be more in line with the state regulations, number one, and number two, that we work out a way to fund the Rice Planters tournament like we did last year.
Thank you. So I'll answer all of that. So yes, agree with you that the state does allow for-profit. What we want to make sure is that that we ensure that when they rewrite this on the committee side, that when it's rewritten, it says heads and beds, or else we will have. We don't want to open it up too much. So it's got to say heads and beds, and that's been discussed. I went to Mr. DeMora to hopefully up their funding a little bit. We are getting more applications. I'm throwing you on the spot. You're welcome. To up the funding a little bit, maybe about like 20 grand or something like that, because there are more applications coming in. We also need to make sure, and I know that accounting is on board, that because the funding is a little lopsided. It's in the first part of the funding, it's very slim, and it looks like you have a lot of money to give away. And then the second part of the funding comes around, and it's got to get nickel and dimed, which I can appreciate. So accounting has promised to, when there, to remind the commission that the heavy part is on the second part. I've also talked to Mr. DeMora about continuing the same funding that you suggested the last time until that can be changed.
Yes, sir.
So I agree with everything that you say, and I believe that the correct things are being done, and I think they're doing a wonderful job with accounting and economic development to fund this correctly. So agree, and we will move forward with those suggestions.
Great, because we've got time.
Yes, thank you.
All right, the motion is to approve. If there are no further comments, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. This moves us to Section B, Planning Committee. First item is consideration of approval for a Historic District Preservation Commission to conduct an updated survey within the Old Village Historic District. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. So I can read the report for you. At their September 9th meeting, HDPC approved a letter of request to Town Council for funding to update the property inventory within the Old Village Historic District. Per the powers and duties, section 156432A1 of the HDPC ordinance, the commission does have the purview to request funding and authorize the updating of a prior survey inventory. As development within Mount Pleasant continues to increase, it is important to maintain a current inventory tracking the status of all properties within the district. The last survey was conducted in 2010, so it's about 15 years old. This would not change the current ordinance. The ordinance says if it's 50 years from the current date, then it could be considered historic. So this that would continue to remain in place. What this survey would do, if granted approval to move forward, would update that survey and look at everything within the last 15 years that now qualifies.
Mr. DeMora, yes.
Mr.
You'd
Mayor,
like
if
to
I
give us
could.
the logistics of that, please.
Yes, sir, and thank you. And if yourself, if
council members, you're inclined to approve this request, I would respectfully ask that this be put to the next fiscal year. Our fiscal year starts July 1. The last time we undertook this kind of project, it was sizable in terms of expense, and we just don't have the room in the current budget. So if this is something that you like, if you could allow us at the staff level to plug this into the budget for the next fiscal year, that would be helpful to us.
Would it suffice to just agree to that? Do we need a motion?
No, sir.
Really a budget item for the 26 budget, yeah.
Yes. Right. Just a motion to approve upon appropriate funding.
Does that commit it? Is that an open-ended commitment, though? I mean, this could come in at $150,000 or something.
Right. You could either delay it or approve it upon appropriate funding and come back to you for to accept bids, I presume.
Yeah. When it was done 15 years ago, it was budgeted for about 40,000. So we know that it's going to be more than that. But we could go out for bid and bring it back to you, however you wish.
Sure.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to defer action on this until the budget committee begins meetings, first of all. Second, I think when this was done previously, there was a lot of discussion among homeowners, some of which were not excited about being included because of requirements in whatever they did or didn't want to do to their housing. So I would just make a motion to defer this until the budget process for FY 2026.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Yes, sir, Mr. Brown.
Yeah, so I've got a question about this. We did a survey in 2010, and all of the projects within the historic district come before the Historic District Preservation Commission. So I guess my question is, what's the utility of a new survey when we know what was there and we know what's been approved over the last 14 years? How does this help them with their role?
So two things. First, I wanted to address Mr. Chapman. Just to clarify, this is not requesting an inventory outside of the existing boundaries. So that was considered. So anything that would be inventoried is already within the historic district. You're correct. So 2010, there was a survey done. They found 430. So when they survey, they're looking at any sort of resource. It could be a structure, a site, a house, property. So it found, that survey identified 430 structures that met the criteria. What this would do is, there's a 50-year time frame where something is considered historic. That's what the ordinance says. So what this survey would do was look within the same boundaries that are shown up here and see what structures over the last 15 years are now 50 years or older, and see if they qualify for any sort of historic designation. You're correct. Every property within these boundaries has to go to the HDPC for approval of any sort of improvements or construction or anything like that. But not every site, property, or structure within these boundaries is designated as historic. So there's a little bit of a difference. So the inventory would figure out what is now considered historic, because we've gone 15 years, and so there's some structures in there now that meet that 50-year time period. So that's what the inventory would do.
Just as a quick aside, it's, kind of somewhat humorous to picture a house built in 1974 as historic, and I'm not sure that's an architecture style worth saving, but I guess this is a debate for another day.
It's hard to consider some of us at this desk. Yes.
I think to go off of what Councilman Brownstein said, I think we may need to revisit that rule, because the purpose of the historic district is to preserve the truly historic homes, and we know what that looks like, and it's not those little red brick houses. It's not. And they're all going to get captured by this. And I think there's going to be homeowners up in arms that all of a sudden that they don't have the ability to build the home that will suit them based upon this. So I think I agree with the motion to defer, and I would like to ask for my planning committee to take up this issue at our next meeting, to maybe pick a date as opposed to a rolling 50 years, pick a date before which homes should be considered historic as opposed to a rolling 50 year, because it makes no sense.
I think we have a motion on the floor,
I know.
which I made.
To defer. Any other comment? All right, all in favor of the motion to defer, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. It is deferred.
Mr. Mayor, may I take this one, please?
Yes, you may, please.
Now, I'm going to stand when I address this in honor of Captain Cliff. As the only veteran that's on this council, and 2 sons that served in Afghanistan, could have been on some of the same dirt. It'd be an honor for me to make the motion that we approve this memorial and monument to Captain Richard Cliff to be done at the Memorial Park. That is our War Memorial Park. That is a proper place for it. He deserves a place of honor, and I love animals as much as he does. And that's why I want to be the one to make this motion. Thank you, sir, for your son and his service and his sacrifice.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. All right, thank you very much. It's hard to add a lot to that, but representing the town on Patriots Point board, and also the Medal of Honor Center for Leadership, one of the most under-recognized areas of American service is those who gave their lives or even served in the General War on Terror. And that's one reason that $3.6 million was just spent to upgrade and update the on-board portion of the Medal of Honor Museum, and when the Center for Leadership gets built. And these will be, the Medal of Honor recipients and these veterans, these are the equivalent of World War II generation that we are losing. And how appropriate that we have someone, a son of Mount Pleasant, that we can name this park for. And I think it's wonderful. Thank you for your motion. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I think that deserves an applause. This moves us to the last section of our agenda for tonight, council new business.
Move to approve items A1 and 2.
Second.
We have a motion to approve items A1 and 2, a highway safety grant and an energy efficient community block grant. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That concludes section 10. Section 11 is to adjourn. There being no further business, this council meeting is adjourned.